My husband, Derek, was mixing pancake batter when a message popped up on his tablet. Thinking about you, boss. After reading it twice, I grabbed his device and typed back. Stop by tonight. Wife's visiting her mom. 20 minutes passed. Then someone knocked on our door. Derek's hands started shaking so bad he dropped the bowl. In our small kitchen that smelled like maple syrup and butter, everything felt warm and cozy. This was supposed to be our happy Sunday morning tradition. Or that's what I believed until right now. Derek stood at the counter, flipping golden pancakes while wearing the red apron our kids made him for Father's Day. He was humming some old song from the radio. From behind, Derek looked like any other dad who cared about his family. He always said making breakfast for everyone was his favorite part of the week. He told me that working hard pays the bills, but cooking breakfast for his loved ones feeds the soul. I sat at our wooden table looking through a cookbook, but my thoughts were somewhere else. The morning sunshine came through our window and landed on Derek's silver tablet sitting there quietly. That dark screen was like a deep hole, keeping secrets I never knew existed. Derek turned around smiling big. The gray hair at his temples made him look distinguished. He asked me to try the pancake to see if it tasted good, then went back to cooking. That's when it happened. The tablet screen suddenly glowed with a bright light showing a text message. My eyes automatically looked at it. The words on the screen were short, but they made my whole world crash down instantly. The message said, Sender, Marina from accounting. Message. Thinking about you, boss. Just 5 simple words. Thinking about you. My heart felt frozen. That terrible pain started last Tuesday when I found strange receipts hidden in his car. All I felt now was cold anger and a careful plan forming in my head. I recognized that name. She was the new lady who started working in Derek's office last spring. I remember Derek mentioning her one time, saying she was smart, friendly, and really good at her job. What I didn't know was that being good at her job included texting her married boss. I breathed slowly, trying to calm my racing heart. I'm a grown woman who fought hard to build this life. I wasn't going to yell or throw things. If I made noise, Derek would make up some story about how it was just innocent work talk. I needed more proof. I needed something they couldn't lie about. Derek kept cutting strawberries. The sound of his knife on the board was loud in my ears, drowning out my thoughts. Very quietly, I picked up the tablet. The password was our daughter's birthday. Oh, sad. He used our child's special day to hide his lies. I typed the 4 numbers I knew by heart. The screen opened, showing the messaging app with that unread text at the top. Without opening it fully, I quickly typed an answer. My cold fingers moved across the screen. Stop by tonight. Visiting her mom. Press send. I watched the message go through with a little swoosh sound, and a tiny smile appeared on my face. I took a picture of what I wrote, sent it to my own phone, and erased everything from Derek's tablet. I wanted him totally surprised when this all exploded. I put the tablet back exactly where it was, at the same angle. My hands were shaking a little, not because I was scared, but because I was so angry inside. I looked at Derek's back. He was still the same person, still acting nice, but now I saw everything differently. He was pretending to be a good husband, but his thoughts were probably with that other woman. If he wanted to play pretend, I would make sure the ending was unforgettable. I fixed my shirt, took a deep breath, and tried to look normal again. The storm inside me stayed hidden behind my calm face, waiting to come out and destroy everything. This was going to be a really long day. Derek poured the pancakes onto a big plate and put them on our table. The sweet smell of syrup and butter filled our dining room. He carefully wiped any drips off the plate with a towel. Yesterday, that breakfast would have made me so happy I'd hug him tight. Today, looking at those pancakes felt like looking at poison covered in sweetness. He made me a plate with 2 pancakes and picked the best strawberries to put on top. With his warm voice, he said, "Eat up, honey. I made them extra fluffy, just how you like them." He even bragged about waking up early to get fresh berries from the farmer's market just to make me smile. I took the plate from my husband, trying hard not to let my hands shake. I cut a piece of pancake and put it in my mouth, chewing slowly. Tasted really good, soft and sweet. When I swallowed, it felt wrong, like I was eating something bad. I had to drink lots of water to make the feeling go away. I stared at the man sitting across from me. Derek ate happily, offering me more syrup and telling me funny jokes. He talked about work stuff, how his manager said nice things about him, and his plans to get promoted soon. But he never mentioned Marina's name or that new lady from accounting. I wondered how someone could live two different lives so easily, getting sweet messages from another woman and then pretending to be the perfect husband right after. Maybe during our 8 years together, he did this fake act so many times that even I couldn't tell what was real anymore. I remembered when we first got married and times were hard. We lived in a tiny apartment with old furniture. Derek held my hand and promised he would work really hard so we could have a nice home. And he did work hard. This house, our car, everything we had showed how much we tried together. But it seems like when we got more stuff, people's hearts started changing too. Having everything made Derek want new things. And the wife who once shared cheap pizza with him wasn't exciting compared to young women at work. Pretending I was full, I stopped eating. I said my stomach hurt and I wasn't hungry anymore. Derek immediately looked worried. He stood up, walked over, and touched my forehead to check if I had a fever. His hand felt warm, but when it touched me, I felt ice cold all over. Moved my head away from his fake caring touch, saying I needed some fresh air. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was almost noon. Time was moving so slowly it felt like torture. From her apartment or wherever she lived, it would probably take her about 30 minutes to get here. I wasn't going to waste this perfect chance. Wife's visiting her mom. Those words were like magic bait. When I came back to the table, Derek was cleaning up the dishes. He told me to go relax on the couch, that he'd take care of everything. Seeing my husband rolling up his sleeves to wash plates, something I used to tell my friends about proudly, now just looked like another part of his big lie. I sat on our sofa and picked up the remote control, but I didn't turn on the TV. My eyes stayed on the front door, and my ears listened for any sounds outside. A war was happening in my head. One part of me hoped she wouldn't come, that this was all a bad dream so I could keep fooling myself. But the other part, the colder and meaner side, wanted that doorbell to ring immediately. I wanted this hurt to come into the light where everyone could see it, because hidden wounds never heal right, even though scars last forever. Every minute felt like an hour. The sound of running water in the kitchen stopped. Derek came out drying his hands and asked if I wanted some fruit. I shook my head and made a small smile. It was probably a weird, forced smile, but Derek didn't notice anything strange. He was too confident in his own perfection. Or maybe he never paid enough attention to my feelings to see something was wrong in my eyes. The clock hit exactly 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Our house was so quiet you could hear everything. Derek sat on the chair across from me and started reading news on his phone, looking totally relaxed. He probably thought this would be just another peaceful Sunday. Or maybe he was already planning what message to send his girlfriend after I went to bed. He had no idea that a huge storm was about to hit him right in the face. Knock, knock, knock. The sound of someone hitting our door broke the silence. It wasn't very loud, but in our quiet house, it sounded like thunder announcing a big fight was starting. Derek lifted his head quickly, surprised. His eyes showed confusion mixed with a little bit of fear. He looked at the clock, then at the door and said quietly, "Who could that be right now?" Then he looked at me like I had the answer. I didn't move from the couch, staying super calm and still. "Stay there," I told him. "I'll answer it." My voice was gentle but firm, not giving him a chance to argue. I stood up and walked slowly to the door. Each step I took on our tile floor sounded heavy and important, like hammers building something permanent. My heart was beating really fast, not from being scared, but from the excited feeling of catching someone doing something bad. I took a big breath, stood up straight, and grabbed the doorknob. I turned the lock and opened our Heavy front door. Standing there was a young woman with long dark hair, wearing lots of makeup, but her face still looked young and innocent. She had on a tight dress that showed off her figure, and in her hand she held a small gift bag with tissue paper sticking out. The second she saw me, the flirty smile on her face disappeared, replaced by a look of total shock. Her eyes got really big, her face went from pink to totally white. She froze like a statue, and her shaking hands almost dropped. A bag. She expected Derek to open the door. She probably imagined jumping into his arms, telling him in a sweet voice how much she missed him. But the real truth that smacked her in the face was seeing me, the lady of this house, his real wife, standing there blocking the door with angry eyes. I didn't say anything at first. I just looked at her terrified face in silence. My silence made everything feel even more uncomfortable and scary. Marina stepped backward, moving her mouth like she wanted to speak, but nothing came out, like someone was choking her. She looked past me into our house and then back at me with the look of someone caught stealing. I heard Derek walking up behind me. "Who is it, babe? What's taking so long?" he asked. His voice made Marina look even more confused and scared. She glanced around like she was looking for somewhere to run away, but I wasn't going to let my trapped mouse escape that easily. Smiled. It was probably a scary smile, scarier than crying. Then I talked. My voice was loud and clear so both the person inside and outside could hear me. "Hello, Marina. Did you come to see my husband?" My question was like pouring ice water on Marina and shocking Derek, who was getting closer. I saw Marina shiver. She realized she walked right into a trap, but she couldn't go back now. The door was open. The show had started. Marina was shrinking like a tiny mouse that accidentally walked into a cat's home. She squeezed the gift bag so tight her hands turned white. Stuttering, she barely said a few words to explain why she came over at this weird time. She said she heard Derek wasn't feeling well, and since she was nearby running errands, she wanted to drop off a get-well gift. "Just being nice," she said. What a terrible lie. I knew Derek felt fine, and our neighborhood isn't somewhere you accidentally pass by unless you meant to come here. But I didn't correct her. The fun part of playing cat and mouse is not catching the mouse right away, but playing with it until it's too tired and scared to move. Keeping my small smile, I stared at her face, which kept changing colors. Seeing Marina try to turn around and run, I said with a voice cold as ice, "If you take one step away from this porch, tomorrow everyone at the office and your family back home will see the pictures and messages between you two. Come inside. Let's talk like adults, and I'll let you keep some respect." Marina stopped moving, trembling all over. She followed me inside slowly. Told her that since she came all this way, she should take a look at our house, that it was really nice and comfortable. I made sure to say "our house" really clearly, like putting a label on something that belonged to me and Derek, not her. Derek had already reached the living room. Seeing me walk in with Marina, his face looked worse than hers. His eyes went huge and his mouth hung open, but he couldn't say a word. The phone in his hand fell onto the couch. He looked back and forth between Marina and me, swinging between panic and total confusion. He couldn't understand why Marina was here or why I was acting so calm about it. I led Marina to the center of our living room and told her to sit in the chair facing our big couch where Derek usually sat. Marina sat on the very edge with her back perfectly straight and knees pressed together, not brave enough to look up. I turned to Derek and waved for him to sit next to me. Like a robot with no brain, Derek stumbled to the couch. Even though the air conditioner was on, sweat drops appeared on his forehead. He sat as far from me as possible, like I was a bomb about to explode. I started introducing everyone. Pointing at Marina, I told Derek she was that wonderful coworker he talked about so much who came to visit him in the afternoon with a gift after hearing her boss was sick. Then I introduced Derek to Marina, saying he was the most amazing husband in the world, a man who never let me down. Each nice thing I said was like sticking a pin in Derek's skin. I saw him get smaller. He noticed Marina looking at Derek with begging eyes. She wanted him to say something, make an excuse, do anything to save her from this horrible situation. But all she got was him looking away like a coward. Derek kept his head down, playing with his shirt, too scared to say anything. His cowardness made me hate him even more, and probably Marina started feeling disappointed too. The man who seemed so strong and important at work had turned into a weak little man who was afraid of his wife when caught doing something bad. I stood up saying I should offer our guest something to drink. I asked Marina what she wanted. Water, juice, or maybe hot chocolate. With a voice so quiet I could barely hear, she said water was okay. I smiled and walked to the kitchen. The living room became silent as a grave. I knew as soon as I left, those two would look at each other with scared eyes, but they wouldn't dare talk because they feared I'd hear them. And that's exactly what I wanted, to let the fear eat them up inside slowly. The kitchen, I made noise on purpose, opening cabinets and drawers so they knew I was still nearby, listening to everything. I opened the cabinet and walked past our nice crystal glasses we used for special company. My hand grabbed a cheap plastic cup instead, the kind you get at fast food restaurants or use for kids' parties. I took one of those cups and filled it with water from the sink. This choice wasn't random. I wanted to make Marina feel small through every tiny detail. I wanted her to understand that her place in this house in our lives was as cheap and temporary as that plastic cup, something you use once and throw away, not worth keeping. I went back to the living room with a tray and put the plastic cup of water in front of Marina. For Derek and me, however, I poured fancy tea in our beautiful china cups with gold edges. The huge difference between the two types of cups was obvious on our glass coffee table. Marina looked at the cheap plastic cup that didn't match our expensive table and her face turned dark red from embarrassment. She understood my message. It was an insult without words, but deeper and sharper than any mean name. I sat next to Derek, this time moving really close to him on purpose. I took his arm and rested my head on his shoulder like we were a loving couple. Derek went stiff as a wooden board, his muscles tight with worry. Through his thin shirt, I could feel his heart beating super fast. The cold sweat kept sliding down the side of his face. I started talking with fake, friendly questions. I asked Marina how her job was going, if Derek was a tough boss, if he treated everyone nicely at work. While I talked, I rubbed Derek's arm gently and looked at him with loving eyes every few seconds. Marina answered with just one or two words, not brave enough to look directly at the sweet couple scene happening in front of her. In her eyes, I saw jealousy, sadness, and fear all mixed together. She was watching how the man she wanted belonged completely and legally to another woman. A sweep. Promises Derek must have whispered to her when they were alone at work meant nothing now compared to this crushing reality. The air in our room felt so thick it was hard to breathe. Even the soft hum of our air conditioner couldn't make the choking atmosphere go away. I felt like I was watching a sad, silent play where every actor tried their best to play their part, except only I had the script and knew how it would end. Suddenly I changed what we were talking about and turned to Derek with an excited voice. I brought up our vacation plans to Hawaii next summer. I described a perfect future with lots of excitement. The blue ocean, the white beaches, the romantic sunset dinners. I added that we were looking at buying a vacation cabin in the mountains where we could spend weekends growing vegetables and going fishing, and we were already planning how to take care of our aging parents when they needed us. Each word I said was like a knife stabbing Marina's heart. She would realize she was completely left out of Derek's life. The future plans, the property, the long-term dreams, all of that belonged to us as a married couple. In that picture there was no space for her. She was just a temporary fun thing, a quick pleasure for Derek. Derek stayed sitting in awful silence, not agreeing or disagreeing with anything. He looked like he was sitting on burning coals, wishing this mental torture would end quickly, but I wasn't going to let him off that easy. I wanted to burn this horrible day into both their memories so they'd feel shivers every time they thought about it. I turned to Marina and with a smile asked her a question that seemed innocent, but was full of hidden meaning. Marina, you're so young and pretty. I'm sure lots of men are interested in you. Me, I'm getting older. I have to work hard to keep this man from leaving me. I'm terrified someone might steal him when I'm not looking. They say nowadays there are lots of desperate homewreckers showing up everywhere, right? Marina jumped and lowered her head quickly. She made her fists so tight her fingertips went white. She knew exactly who I was talking about. The words desperate homewreckers, even though I said them lightly, cut like a razor and destroyed the last bit of her pride. The words hung in the air, making everything even more uncomfortable. Marina didn't dare answer my question. She mumbled something nobody could understand and avoided my questioning eyes. I could see her thin shoulders shaking hard even though she tried to control herself. The confidence and flirty attitude she had when she arrived at my house had disappeared completely, leaving only the image of someone guilty, waiting for punishment. But I wasn't going to let them escape easily. I turned to Derek and squeezed his arm a little harder. My fingernails dug slightly into his skin through the shirt, reminding him I was powerful and in control. I looked at my husband and changing my voice to a sweet tone, but keeping my eyes sharp as knives, I asked him about the vacation cabin in the mountains we looked at last weekend. I spoke loudly and clearly, making sure Marina heard everything. I reminded him that both our parents loved the property, that it had good vibes, and being near the lake, it was really peaceful. I stressed that my parents promised to give us $10,000 for fixing it up as a gift for their future grandchildren. When I mentioned children, I felt Derek's body get really tense. It was his weakest spot. We'd been married for 8 years, but we waited to have kids until we had enough money saved. And now, when everything was perfect for starting a family, I discover this betrayal. But I brought up babies on purpose. I knew it was the strongest chain, the family and social respect that a temporary girlfriend like Marina could never give him. I described with excitement a happy family full of kids' laughter. I said, "This year is perfect to start trying for a baby. At our ages it's the right time and I really hope we have a little girl." Then I turned to Marina and asked if she didn't think that was a wonderful plan. At my direct question, Marina jumped and the spoon she was holding fell from her hands. The sound of metal hitting the plate rang out sharp in the silence. She quickly picked it up and with a red face she stuttered, It's a great plan. I'm sure you'll be really happy." How ironic that forced blessing sounded coming from the other woman's mouth. I knew inside she was screaming, eaten up by jealousy. She came here hoping to make space for herself in our lives. But the only thing she found was a strong statement of a future where there was no room for her. The big house, the solid family connections, the long-term plans, all of it formed a wall she could never break through. A wall that someone like her, with nothing real to offer, could never tear down. I kept my mental attack going on the money side. I told Derek, "Tomorrow I'll transfer the money for the cabin deposit, so you need to sign the papers for the deed quickly." I purposely emphasized that the cabin would have both our names on the title. It was a statement of ownership over our property, a warning that everything Derek had was connected to me, and if he left me, he'd lose everything. Derek, sweating like crazy, nodded his head. He wished I would stop talking, stop torturing him with these sweet words about the future that sounded more terrifying than actual threats. He knew perfectly well the warning hiding behind every single one of my words. Don't be stupid and trade everything you have for a moment of fun. The talk about the cabin and kids seemed to suck the last bit of energy out of Marina. She shrank into the chair, hugging the water cup with both hands, like she was looking for warmth that disappeared long ago. I looked back and forth between the thin plastic cup in her hands and the gold-edged cup in mine. Feeling cruel satisfaction, I lifted my cup, took a sip, and enjoyed the subtle taste of the expensive green tea. I mentioned how delicious the tea was, its clear and smooth flavor. I offered Marina some too, but my eyes stopped on her cheap plastic cup with fake pity. "Marina, are you okay with just water? Want me to make you some hot chocolate? Water is pretty boring, don't you think?" My voice sounded kind, like a rich lady giving money to a homeless person, but with a hint of looking down on her. Marina quickly shook her hands no. No, I'm good. I was thirsty. Water is fine. I don't want to bother you." The word bother she used seemed ridiculous. Her being here at this time was the biggest bother of all. I set my cup on the table. The firm sound of china hitting glass echoed in the room. I looked at Derek. He was still sitting like a dead person with his eyes stuck on his shoes. I decided to involve him more in this fun game. I told him to cut some oranges for our guest. A man should be a gentleman. How can you have a visitor sitting here without offering her anything? Derek, like he got shocked with electricity, jumped up and went to the kitchen for oranges and a knife. He peeled the fruit clumsily, his hands shaking, leaving the peel jagged and messy. The man who used to make fancy fruit arrangements for me couldn't even peel a simple orange in front of his girlfriend. His mind was broken. Fear had frozen all his senses and abilities. When he put the plate of oranges on the table, I stabbed the juiciest piece with a fork and brought it straight to Derek's mouth. Open up, honey. Me feed you. Don't touch it with your hands. Dirty. Derek hesitated for a second, but finally accepted the orange I offered. The scene of a married couple feeding each other sweetly in front of someone else was normal, and at the same time really hurtful. I pushed the plate of oranges toward Marina. You eat too, Marina. These are really juicy and sweet. Marina looked at the piece of orange Derek just ate, then at the plate in front of her like she had a knot stuck in her throat. How could she swallow food while watching such a lovey-dovey display? The unfair treatment wasn't just about the cups, but also the attention and care. I was the wife. I had the right to take care of my husband in public and be taken care of by him. She, however, no matter how much Derek wanted her at work, was an intruder here, a forced watcher of our marriage's happiness show. I saw Marina's eyes getting red and watery. She was probably crying inside or maybe regretting how stupid it was to come here and be humiliated like this. But I didn't feel even a tiny bit. Hurry. My kindness died the moment I saw the message, thinking about you, on the screen. Mercy is a luxury I don't give to people who try to wreck another person's happy home. Silence took over the living room again, but this time the air smelled much more dangerous. Marina, maybe trying to break the tension or recover some of her image as a caring person in front of Derek, cleared her throat and asked shyly about his health. Boss, how's your back doing? Is it feeling better? Her voice was low but colored with real concern. She even offered to ask her grandmother to send some special pain cream from her hometown, which she said worked really well for back pain. Hearing that, Derek's face turned ghostly white. He denied quickly with his hands, saying he was totally fine, that it wasn't necessary. He glanced sideways at me, terrified, knowing his foolish mistress just made a huge mistake. She was showing knowledge of her boss's private life that went way beyond normal work friendship. I let out a laugh, a short, icy chuckle that made both of them shudder. I looked at Marina with piercing eyes, like I could see into her soul. Wow, Marina, you really do worry about your boss a lot. Look at that. The wife who shares a bed with him every single night still hasn't heard about this back pain. But you, someone who's worked there just a few months, how do you know about his health problems? I purposely stretched out the words, shares a bed with him every single night, to remind Marina of her place. Gave no break and kept attacking. Does Derek complain about his pains at the office in front of you? Or do you two see each other alone so often that you know even the details of his body aches? Marina couldn't speak. Her face went from red to purple. She stuttered that she simply saw him at work rubbing his lower back with a pained look and asked out of basic politeness. Pathetic excuse. I knew Derek's back issues were ongoing. To protect his image as a strong leader, he rarely showed signs of weakness in public. He only did that when he was alone with someone he really trusted. I shot Derek a deadly look. And you? Why are you going around worrying your employees at work? Next time if you're in pain, tell me your wife. Don't make other people worry and bring you medicine. They're going to think your wife doesn't care about you. The other day you told me you were late because of a work meeting and your back hurt. I see now what kind of work meeting that was. At my hint, Derek lowered his head and said nothing. He knew exactly what I was talking about. The night he used the work meeting excuse. He actually met with Marina and, probably to get the young woman's sympathy, complained about his pains. I had just revealed the lie of a coworker's concern and exposed the raw truth of their shady relationship. Her excessive interest was proof she crossed the line, and I, as the wife, had every right to question and unmask that lie right here in my own house. The clock on the wall showed 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The cat and mouse game had reached its peak. I felt it was time to deliver the final blow, one that would destroy the intruder's spirit completely and serve as a last warning to my cheating husband. I slowly took my phone out of my pocket and left it on the table. I slid my finger across the screen, pretending to check a message, and then sighed on purpose. The world is so messed up these days. The news talks about nothing but cheating and scandals. My friends tell me young women nowadays are really bold. They send messages to married men like they're single without any shame. I paused and watched their reactions. Marina stayed frozen, but her breathing got faster. Derek was secretly wiping sweat from his forehead with his sleeve. The tension was like a rubber band about to snap. I made my voice even sharper and continued. I also check Derek's tablet sometimes to help him with work stuff, and lately I've seen lots of messages coming from unknown numbers. A young woman by the looks of it. Her name sounds pretty innocent. B from accounting. She sends really sweet messages to Derek. I glanced sideways at Marina. Her face lost all color. Her lips, which were painted bright red before, were now white and trembling. With a mocking smile, I threw the final punch. You know what, Marina? Just earlier today, I was home and my husband was making breakfast, and suddenly a woman sends a message to his tablet saying, "Thinking about you." Some nerve, right? With the wife at home, daring to send a message like that. Was she challenging me? My words fell like lightning on Marina. She looked at me with eyes huge as plates, terror carved into her pupils. She understood everything. The "thinking about you" message from before. The reply, "Stop by tonight. Wife's visiting her mom." It was all a trap, a perfect trap I set myself, and she, like a dumb moth, flew straight into it. Marina's hands and feet started shaking uncontrollably. She looked at me like I was a monster. She realized the woman sitting across from her wasn't a simple and naive housewife but a master of mind games. I knew everything from the beginning, but acted totally normal, inviting her in, serving her water, offering her fruit, and then I slowly ripped off the mask layer by layer until leaving her completely naked in her own shame. Derek, beside me, was also shocked. He turned toward me with a look of pure horror. He never imagined I read that message, and that I was clever enough to lure Marina here and embarrass her this way. My intelligence and coldness sent a chill down his spine. He realized he greatly underestimated his wife. I looked Marina straight in the eyes. My stare was cold and full of disgust. I didn't need to say anything else. My silence was the harshest judgment. I revealed everything, but I hadn't said her name directly yet. I wanted to see if she had any dignity left to leave on her own. It was the last bit of mercy I would give her before she left this house. Marina couldn't take it anymore. The invisible pressure coming from me, Derek's cowardice, and the cruel truth that just got revealed crushed her will. Every second must have been torture for her, like sitting in an electric chair. She quickly grabbed her purse she left beside the chair. In her rush, the bag hit the furniture with a dull thud. She jumped up, but her legs wobbled and she almost fell down. Without daring to look me in the face, head down, she mumbled that she had to leave. She made the excuse that something urgent came up at home, that her roommate told her to come back right away and she was sorry she couldn't stay longer. Her voice was cracked, about to cry. Without waiting for us to reply, she headed for the door, running like a chased thief. The gift bag was left abandoned on the table as proof of the miserable failure of her visit. Derek made a move to stand up, probably to walk her out or apologize, but I was faster. I put my hand on his leg and squeezed hard, signaling him to stay seated. My look hardened, warning him not to do anything dumb in this situation. Derek understood my message and stayed frozen, watching Marina's back as she disappeared through the door. I got up and followed her slowly to the entrance. I walked with calm confidence, totally opposite to her nervousness. Marina was trying to put her shoes on, but her hands were shaking so much she couldn't do it. I leaned against the doorway with my arms crossed, watching her with a mix of pity and disgust. When she finally got her shoes on and was about to open the door to leave, I called out, "Marina!" She stopped, dead startled. She turned around with a scared, begging look. She probably feared I'd make a big scene outside, yell at her or pull her hair, but I didn't. My dignity didn't let me act like trash. I walked up to her and whispered in her ear, quiet enough so only we heard. My voice was soft as a whisper but cold as ice. "Next time you want to see my husband, call first. If you go sneaking around here at weird times, the neighbors might get the wrong idea and think something shady is happening in this nice neighborhood. And remember this, Derek's wife isn't always visiting her mom." Hearing my words, Marina's face lost every drop of blood. She nodded over and over like a bobblehead toy. She stuttered a yes and ran toward her car parked on the street. She fumbled with her keys frantically, like she wanted to escape as fast as possible. Her figure, small, alone and pathetic, stood out against the bright afternoon sun. I watched her until her car drove away and disappeared around the corner. Faint smile appeared on my lips. One down. The young prey got a good scare. Now, not even if someone paid her would she dare get near my husband. But the war wasn't over. The main enemy, the one who caused me the deepest hurt, was still sitting in the living room. I turned around and slammed the door shut. The loud sound of the lock echoed in our house, announcing the start of the trial for my cheating husband. I took a deep breath, put back my cold expression and walked in. The wooden door closed, completely cutting off this house filled with deadly air from the outside world. The smile of victory on my lips went out like a candle in the wind. I didn't go straight back to the living room. I stood there for a few seconds, holding the cold doorknob. The waves of sickness rising from my stomach were unbearable. I pulled off an amazing performance, but the cost was a deep wound bleeding in my heart. I turned and walked slowly into the living room. Derek was still in the same spot, not moving on the tan leather. His head was down, hands clasped over his knees. He looked pathetic, so far from the cool, confident husband he used to be. But his sadness didn't make me feel even slightly sorry. Instead, it only made me hate him more. I walked up to him, picked up his tablet lying abandoned on the table, looked at him, then at the device, and suddenly, with a quick movement, I smashed it hard against the glass table. Crack. The sharp, violent sound broke the choking silence. The tablet screen shattered into tiny pieces, cracks spreading like a spider's web, a perfect picture of our marriage. In that moment, Derek jumped, looking at me with a face pale with terror. I crossed my arms and looked down at him with icy eyes. With a voice sharp and firm, empty of all emotion, I said, "Explain yourself." The message saying, "Stop by tonight. Wife's visiting her mom." I sent that. Did you think I was an idiot who didn't know anything? Just like that, Derek was left with his mouth hanging open, looking at me in disbelief. He didn't expect me to reveal my card so fast and so forcefully. Maybe he thought I only had vague suspicions, but he never imagined I controlled everything from the start. His lips trembled, trying to form a pathetic excuse. "Honey, it's a big misunderstanding. She and I are just coworkers. Her coming here today was a total surprise to me. I swear I didn't know anything." He tried to play the victim. His eyes avoided looking at me. I let out a bitter laugh. "Coworkers. Coworker sends you a message at noon saying she's thinking about you. A coworker knows better than your own wife about your eating habits and your health problems. A coworker dares to come to your house thinking your wife isn't home." I moved closer to him, looking straight at his face, and said, saying each word slowly and clearly, "Don't treat me like I'm stupid. We've been living together for 8 years. I know you better than you know yourself." That sneaky look, that jump when you heard the Knock that coward attitude in front of your girlfriend. Everything gave you away. Derek lowered his head, too scared to reply. He knew that facing such clear truth, any lie was useless. His silence was the clearest confession. I felt huge disappointment. The man I loved and trusted completely was nothing but a dirty liar, a coward, unable to take responsibility for his actions. Derek's silence added more fuel to the fire of my anger. I didn't need his empty apologies. I wanted him to face the raw truth he tried so hard to hide. I went to my bag, which was on a shelf, and pulled out a stack of papers I prepared yesterday afternoon. They were the proofs I'd been gathering secretly for the last 2 weeks since I started suspecting. I threw the papers at his face. The white sheets flew and fell messily over the destroyed tablet. Derek picked up a paper. His hands were shaking badly. It was a credit card statement. The details from the last 2 months. I had circled in red the charges to Marina Williams with weird descriptions like gift or coffee. The amounts weren't huge, $50 or $100 each time, but they happened suspiciously often. One charge stood out, $800 from last week with the note, birthday gift. I pointed at the statement and raised my voice. And how do you explain this spending? $800 birthday gift for someone from accounting. For my birthday, a card and dinner at a chain restaurant was enough for you. Your generosity is truly amazing. Derek couldn't speak, sweating like crazy. He didn't expect me to know his finances in such detail. But that wasn't all. I pulled out screenshots of his text conversations I took from his laptop where he forgot to log out. Flirty messages, plans for coffee and movies, and even expressions of sickeningly sweet missing each other. I threw another photo. It was a movie ticket from 3 weeks ago at 10 o'clock at night. That day he told me he was working late on a big project, but actually he was watching a movie with his mistress. And finally, I pulled out the photo of a long blonde hair I found on the passenger seat of his car. My hair was brown and shoulder length. That hair was without doubt Marina's. Faced with such undeniable proof, Derek crumbled completely. There was no way to deny it or make excuses anymore. His mask of fake morality had been ripped off, showing his true cheating nature. He let his arms drop and sank into the couch with a look of despair. And then he started crying, tears of a grown man, something I barely saw. I'm sorry. I went crazy. You tricked me. Please forgive me just this once. A late apology and a coward excuse, putting the blame on someone else. Cheating men always use the same lines. I fell into temptation. I couldn't help it. Seeing him cry froze my heart. I went to the kitchen. I grabbed the container with the pancakes he made so carefully all morning. Under Derek's shocked stare, I dumped the entire thing into the trash can in the corner. The sweet smell of pancakes mixed with the sour smell of garbage, creating a disgusting stink. I turned to Derek and threw my final words at him. My love for you is like these pancakes. Before it was sweet and precious, but once it gets contaminated, it's nothing but trash. And I don't eat trash. My act of throwing away the food was like a bucket of cold water for Derek, who seemed to wake up from his delusion. He realized I wasn't joking. The determination in my eyes and actions announced an absolute break. Derek ran toward me, fell to his knees and hugged my legs. He cried uncontrollably, begging me not to leave him, not to divorce him. He swore he would end everything with Marina, that he would even quit his job if necessary, that he would do anything to fix his mistake. He talked about our parents, about our 8 years together, trying to hold me back. I stayed stiff as a rock, letting him cry while hugging my legs. My heart was already dead. His promises now only made me more disgusted. If he really valued our 8 years of love, he wouldn't have been with another woman. If he really thought about our parents, he wouldn't have let things get this bad. Coldly, I pushed his hands away and stepped back. I looked at him with pity and said, "Keep the little dignity you have left. Don't be pathetic. My decision can't be changed." I turned around and went straight to the bedroom. Inside the closet was the big suitcase I packed yesterday. I pulled it out and threw in some more clothes and my important personal stuff. I didn't take much, just what was truly mine. This house, this furniture, now seemed stained by betrayal. I walked out to the living room with the suitcase. Derek was still on the floor, crying with his head down. His loud crying echoed in the quiet space. I left a piece of paper I printed earlier on the table. It was the loan agreement for the $25,000 my parents lent us at the beginning of our marriage when we couldn't afford to buy furniture, along with the receipts showing my dad's name. This $25,000 is a clear debt. Don't even think about not paying it. When you sell the house, the first thing will be to pay back this debt, and then we split the rest, I told Derek with an icy voice. Get ready to pay back every last penny. The house has both our names, but I'm not going to fight for it. I'm giving it to you so you can live with your girlfriend, but my parents' money, you have to return to me. Derek looked at the papers and then at me. His look was pure despair. He knew he couldn't get that much money overnight, but I didn't care. It was the price he had to pay for his betrayal. I wanted him to feel the pain of loss deep in his bones, both emotionally and money-wise. I dragged the suitcase toward the door. Before leaving, I took one last look at the house. What was once our home had now become the grave of my love. I opened the door and stepped out into the bright hallway. The sound of the door closing behind me echoed once more, putting an end to 8 years of my life with that shameless man. Without looking back, I walked with steady steps toward my car. A new life was waiting for me. It would be hard, but at least it would be clean and peaceful. My car traveled through the quiet suburban streets. Sitting in the driver's seat, I watched the houses pass by one after another. My mind was blank but strangely light. I didn't cry. The tears seemed dried up inside, turned into sharp determination. I was heading to Jasmine's apartment. My best friend since high school, Jasmine was a respected lawyer in town, specializing in divorce and property fights. She was strong, decisive, and super smart. I warned her ahead of time, so she was already waiting for me in her driveway when I arrived. Seeing me get out of the car with a tired face and dragging the suitcase, Jasmine didn't ask anything. She walked over silently and gave me a tight hug. At that warm gesture of friendship, I almost broke down crying, but I held it in. It wasn't the time to show weakness. Jasmine took me to her apartment. It was small but comfortable, filled with the nice smell of lavender candles. She made me a cup of hot tea and told me to sit down and tell her everything. And so I did. I told her everything from the awful message to the theater I put on to invite Marina home, the confrontation with Derek, and my decision to leave. I spoke with surprising calm, like telling someone else's story. When I finished, Jasmine hit her hand on the table with a loud thud. She let out a curse word and told me I did very well, that a cheating man is unforgivable, and that my way of handling the mistress was top level, polite but at the same time super cruel. Jasmine started looking at the situation from a legal view. She reviewed the proof I gathered, the credit card statements, the messages, the photos. She nodded and said that with all that, she had more than enough to win in court. She offered to take my case if Derek didn't agree to a peaceful divorce. But Jasmine told me that before going to court, we had to teach that perfect couple a lesson they wouldn't forget for the rest of their lives. Divorce was my freedom, but true justice was punishing the cheater. She suggested a more clever revenge plan. Instead of making a big scene or putting him on social media to become the town gossip, we would attack what mattered most to Derek: his job and his reputation. Jasmine told me to organize all the proofs into one folder. She said she would help me write a whistleblower email to send to the bosses at Derek's company. A deadly blow to his career and credibility. It would be 1,000 times more painful than a couple of slaps. I nodded, agreed. Our eyes met, and determination shined in them. That evening would be the evening we planned the final battle. The next few days passed in scary silence. Derek didn't stop calling and sending messages, but I didn't answer. I turned off my phone and spent all my time at Jasmine's house preparing the special gift for my husband and his mistress. Jasmine helped me write the email. Instead of insults or lies, we used professional, fair, and sharp language like it was a legal complaint. The subject of the email was short but powerful. Report on workplace conduct violation and inappropriate relationship between supervisor and employee. I scanned all the proofs, the text screenshots with the romantic conversations, the credit card statements proving he used his paycheck to buy gifts and misused money, the photo of movie tickets during work hours as proof of not doing his job. Jasmine organized everything into one PDF file over 5 megabytes, clearly marking dates, times, and locations. Thursday morning, the sky was gray like predicting a storm. At 8 o'clock in the morning sharp, the time when all office workers sit at their desks and start checking their email, I turned on the laptop. Jasmine, sitting next to me, put a hand on my shoulder as support. I took a deep breath and looked at the draft one last time. The recipient list included the CEO, the HR boss, and the heads of the departments involved. I didn't send it to everyone in the company. I didn't want to become cheap gossip. I only sent it to the people with power to decide Derek and Marina's fate. The mouse arrow stopped over the send button. My heart was pounding hard, not from fear, but from the tension of the big moment. One click would completely change the lives of 3 people. Derek would lose the career he built for 15 years. Marina would lose the future that was just starting to grow, and I would put a period on a painful past to start a new chapter. I remembered Marina's bold look when arriving at my house. I remembered Derek's cowardness kneeling and asking for forgiveness. I remembered the pancakes thrown in the trash. The last bit of compassion left in my heart disappeared. "Goodbye, ex-husband," I whispered to myself as I pressed firmly on the left mouse button. A short, cold notification appeared on the laptop screen. The email loaded with the death sentence for Derek and Marina's careers had been sent. I leaned back in the chair and let out a long sigh of relief. It was over. The arrow had already been shot, and nobody could stop it. Now I just had to wait for the storm to break over the cheaters' heads. That Thursday, the atmosphere at Derek's company must have been as choking as the day Marina came to our house. According to a friend who worked in the same building, my email caused a huge impact and spread like wildfire in a matter of minutes. Derek tried to act normal when arriving at work, but inside he must have been eaten up by panic. At 9:30 in the morning, the HR boss called him into a meeting room. There, they showed proofs that he used the company credit card for personal spending with Marina and lied on receipts for business dinners. It was stealing company money by the book, and he was suspended without pay while they did a full investigation. Derek stood up with his face pale as a ghost. He opened his mouth to try to excuse himself, to say it was a misunderstanding, a lie. But the HR boss raised a hand firmly, cutting him off. On the table, he left a thick folder with the printed version of that very PDF file I sent. Facing such undeniable proofs, Derek was left speechless. 2 security guards came over and asked him to gather his personal stuff and leave the office right away. Everyone was shocked to see how the man who until then was a respected supervisor was escorted out of the company like a criminal. Derek walked in silence, head down, surrounded by the whispers of people watching him. That public embarrassment would mark his career with a stain that would never go away. I, from Jasmine's house, got the news by phone without feeling any emotion. I didn't laugh with satisfaction, and I didn't feel sorry. It was the price of betrayal. When he stepped on our marriage and chased his desires, he signed the death certificate of his career himself. 5 days later, his firing was made official. The reason given in an internal memo was serious violation of professional ethics and damage to company image and trust. Derek not only lost his job, but also entered the blacklist of HR managers in the industry. In this town, rumors fly faster than the wind. Once your moral reputation is stained, especially by a scandal with a younger coworker, the doors to your career close almost completely. The money consequences didn't take long to arrive like a giant wave. Derek lost his main source of income, But the bank loans kept coming due on time. The car payment, the house mortgage, the credit cards. Everything became a rope tightening around his neck. Before, thanks to his high salary and my good planning, he lived comfortably without looking at prices. Now, just with the monthly bank interest, he was sweating bullets. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. It was Derek's number. Seeing the name husband flashing on the screen, I let out a dry laugh and changed his name in my contacts to just Derek Morris. I didn't answer. I let it ring until it stopped. Then the texts started arriving. First, they were begging, asking for forgiveness, asking me to take back the report to give him a chance to start over. Since I didn't reply, the tone changed to accusations, calling me cruel and heartless for having ruined his life. I skimmed them and deleted them all. Cruel. When he was with another woman while I waited for him at home with dinner ready, did he think about the word cruelty? When he used our joint money to buy expensive gifts for his mistress, did he think about my hard work? I only claimed what was fair for me. Even his parents who lived across the state called me. My mother-in-law, crying, insulted me, calling me a bad wife, the one who destroyed her son and her family. She said it was normal for men to mess up, that women should put up with it to keep peace in the home. Hearing that, I felt bitter sadness for the fate of women. I told my mother-in-law calmly that I couldn't live with a cheater and hung up. I also blocked the numbers of his whole family. I didn't want to hear any more lectures on fake morality. Derek had lost everything, literally everything. Wife, family, career, reputation, and now he was drowning in debt. He would wander through that big but empty house, facing the four walls and crushing loneliness. It was the fairest punishment for someone who didn't value what he had. Marina's fate wasn't much different. As soon as Derek was suspended, she was also called to HR. She entered the room with puffy eyes and a tired look, far from the confident and flirty image of that day. The decision to end her work contract was immediate. The reason? Violation of internal conduct rules and harm to the work environment. Marina cried, begged for a chance, said she was young and made a mistake. But in the ruthless corporate world, those naive excuses are useless. She worked at a major corporation. Being fired dishonorably meant the doors to her future had closed halfway. Worse than losing the job was the disgust of her peers. The story of the bold mistress who challenged the real wife became the hottest topic in the anonymous company group chats. When Marina was packing her things in a cardboard box, nobody came over to talk to her or help her. Everyone looked at her with disgust, whispering behind her back. The men who used to flirt with her now avoided her like poison for fear of getting caught in the scandal. Marina left the office alone, carrying her box. The long empty hallway seemed like a path of thorns waiting for her. In front of the elevator, she crossed paths with the same security guard who saw her run away days before. The man's look of pity was the last straw, and Marina finally broke down, crying loudly. She ran out of the building, leaving behind people's mockery. According to what Jasmine told me after that incident, Marina couldn't handle the shame and moved to a different city. She put all her social media on private and disappeared from the online world. It was a very expensive lesson for a young woman just starting to take her first steps in life. She tried to trade her beauty and youth for something empty. But in the end, she lost the most valuable thing for a woman: her honor and self-respect. I didn't feel sorry for Marina. She chose that path, ignoring morals and ethics, and the consequences were hers. I only hope that after this painful failure, she learns to live a more correct way for the rest of her life. 3 months later, we saw each other again in court for the divorce settlement hearing. Derek seemed to have aged 15 years. He had messy hair and wrinkled clothes. He looked at me with begging eyes, but I kept a cold and distant attitude. Jasmine came with me as my lawyer. Her presence, professional and sharp, scared Derek even more. In court, Derek tried to hold on to the idea that he still loved me and wanted to fix our relationship, but Jasmine showed the undeniable proofs of his cheating, wiping out his weak hope in one shot. The division of property was the point of greatest tension. The house was our biggest thing. Derek, out of pride, wanted to keep. He didn't want to find himself homeless. He suggested paying me my share in monthly payments. I let out a laugh of disgust and shook my head firmly. I wasn't going to allow any money connection to tie me to my ex-husband. Jasmine, in my name, presented my conditions. Either he paid me 50% of the house value in one lump sum plus the $25,000 for the furniture my parents contributed, or we sold the house and split the money. He, of course, had to take charge of the entire remaining mortgage. Derek's face, unemployed and in debt, turned white. Where was he going to get hundreds of thousands of dollars overnight? The bank had already started sending him foreclosure notices for being 4 months behind on the mortgage. In the end, he had no choice but to accept selling the house. The home, which was once his pride, was put up for sale as a quick deal below market price to get a fast sale. After paying off the mortgage, paying me back my share and my parents' $25,000, Derek was left with almost no money. He signed the divorce papers with a shaking hand. His crooked signature put the period on 8 years of marriage. He walked out of the courthouse empty-handed, both literally and figuratively, without a house, without a car. He already sold it to pay debts, without a wife and without a job. He stood alone in the sunny courtyard of the courthouse, watching in silence as I left in my car. The price was very high, but it was entirely his fault. Received the money from the house sale and the property division. It was a good amount, enough to start a new life. Instead of a big house like before, I chose a smaller, cozy apartment in a quiet neighborhood full of trees. I decorated my new home exactly how I wanted. Gone were the fancy, flashy furniture pieces to satisfy Derek's vanity. In their place, I put soft cream tones, fresh plants, and a simple wooden bookshelf. Every corner of the house showed my personality and gave off an unusual peace. Tonight I've invited Jasmine to the housewarming. We're sitting on the balcony with a cool breeze, drinking red wine, and looking at the lit-up town. Jasmine toasted to my freedom, to having gotten out of that disaster. I smiled and clinked my glass with that of my valuable friend. Without her strength and determination, I probably wouldn't have survived this storm with such strength. My phone buzzed with a notification. My paycheck deposited. I've been promoted to team supervisor. After successfully leading a big project, the intense work has helped me slowly distance myself from the pain of the past. I opened Facebook and saw a message from a stranger. Her profile picture was a daisy in full bloom. She was thanking me. Turns out Jasmine had shared my story anonymously on a women's forum to warn others, changing all names and personal details. The woman told me that reading my story had given her the courage to leave her husband who had been treating her badly and cheating on her for years. Reading the message, I felt a strange warmth in my heart. My pain hadn't been totally useless. It had become motivation and a lesson for other women swimming in a sea of suffering. I took a deep breath, enjoying the fresh air of the spring night. The past stayed closed behind the courthouse doors. Now before me stretches a wide sky full of hope. I'm Keisha. I'm 34 years old. I'm single, independent, and happy. I smiled and took a sip of wine. The bitter taste of the wine and the sweet aftertaste it leaves in the mouth resembles my life. I suppose you have to go through the bitterness to be able to taste the sweetness of freedom. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect, JAMAL'S Stories.